Have you ever wondered what your 2D art would look like in physical 3D space? And I'm not just talking about printing it out on a piece of paper, but actually creating something you can hold with texture and depth, something that feels real. Well, with a 3D printer, you can do just that with a technique called filament painting. Hey everyone, it's Kevin. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to be talking about filament painting, which allows you to transform 2D images into detailed 3D prints that you can actually touch and feel. So I just got a 3D printer a few weeks ago, which is the Bambu Lab P1S with the AMS, the automatic material system that allows for multicolor printing, and it's been really great. I made a few videos on the channel, like my first time 3D printing where I did an entire unboxing setup to my very first prints, and another video where I tried some practical 3D printing projects. And among those, filament painting was one of the projects that I first experimented with. I did put out this video a few weeks ago, which was this Dragoon tarot card, and in that video I showed the process of filament painting from start to finish, from designing the tarot card in Procreate and then all the way to printing it out. So I wanted to revisit this technique because I feel like there was a lot of potential with this application, especially if you're used to working in 2D, and I learned a lot from that video. So I say that I'm used to working in 2D, although on this channel I've worked primarily in 3D, and that's because before starting this channel 4 years ago now, I was primarily working in 2D. I like being able to have something that's 2D and then transform it into 3D, and filament painting was pretty eye-opening because it's like seeing my work in a new way. So in this video, I'm gonna do a walkthrough of my process and experiments if you're interested in filament painting with a 3D printer. What makes filament painting incredibly easy is Hue Forge. Hue Forge is a software that controls where and when different colors are used during the printing process. It comes with an extensive filament library where you can select filaments you'll be printing with, and it gives you a live visual preview of how your colors will look layered on top of each other and how light will filter through them. You can adjust this using sliders to fine-tune the end result. Hue Forge costs $30, and I think it's $24 right now for a personal license, and you can get it directly from their official website at TheO'S.com. As I mentioned previously, one of the projects where I focused on this process of filament painting was this Dragoon tarot card. This is a character class from the MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV, and I made this as a birthday gift for my sister. I decided to create a tarot card because when I thought about this technique, I felt like something decorative like a tablet would be a good fit. There were a lot of things I learned about that process in doing that project, but I couldn't really share that in the video because I didn't talk, and one of the big things was color. So these two projects were featured in my first time 3D printing video, and they both used Hue Forge. I didn't design these, but I printed them out just to see how that process worked. I thought the printer would place the colors exactly where they were in the digital reference. So when I created the Dragoon design, I only used 4 colors: dark blue, light blue, pink, and white. However, when I brought the design into Hue Forge, I had trouble matching the colors to the original, and that's when I realized that since it prints in layers, you can't precisely control which areas will be pink or blue. It all depends on the sequence of colors. And you're not just going to get the exact colors you loaded, but more of a blend of those colors with varying shades and values. So this time around, I really wanted to nail down this process from a design standpoint. For this project, I decided to create another tarot card, this one inspired by Princess Zelda, and specifically from the new game coming out, Echoes of Wisdom. I made this in Procreate using the Dragoon tarot card as a base. It's essentially the same size, but I included a lot of imagery in the design that reference the Zelda series. I also added the rod that's used in the new game and titled the card Wisdom. I started off with sketching the design, refining it, adding the line art, and then finished off with color. As I mentioned, I wanted to take into consideration the printing process, but that went out the window and it was really hard for me to do so. I ended up just taking the same approach to the Dragoon Tarot card and used 4 colors: dark brown, yellow, pink, and white. The last time I did this, I actually sampled the colors of my filaments, but here I resigned myself to just use colors that looked good. When I was finished, I exported the image as a transparent PNG and brought it into Hue Forge. To help me through this process, I did reference a video by Mark Curie that was really helpful, so if you want to check them out, I'll leave a link below. But this is what it looks like as soon as you import it. Down here, you can see 4 grayscale colors already selected. You can also adjust the number of layers that are created using a specific color. The more layers, the more saturated or prominent that color will be in the final print. On the left, we have a library of filaments that we can use to get an accurate live visual of the print. This is super helpful because it factors in the transmission distance, which measures how much light a filament allows to pass through. If your filament isn't listed in the library, you can add your own, but I believe you'll need to do some testing to get an accurate TD. I only have 1 AMS, which allows me to print with up to 4 colors. I have a lot of the Bambu Lab matte filaments, and I pre-selected them earlier by checking this box, so they're easily accessible at the top. The only other settings you'll need to be mindful of are layer height and base layer. You can adjust these as needed, but you'll need to make sure they match the settings in your slicer software. And I'm using Bambu Lab Studio for this. So I'm recording this after the fact and have already printed it a few times. So for the first pass, I selected dark brown as the base color, yellow as the next color, followed by pink and then white. Once you're happy with your settings, you can export the file as an STL and then bring it into your slicer software. In Bambu Lab Studio, I switched all the filaments to match the ones I loaded. Bambu Lab makes it really easy to swap between filaments. Then I adjusted some of the settings here. Under quality, I made sure to match the layer height and initial layer height that I set in Hue Forge. Then I changed the seam position to nearest. Under strength, I set the sparse infill density to 100% and changed the pattern to rectilinear. I also scaled the model down a bit by adjusting the scale here, and then I sliced it. And you don't have to worry about this background since it's on layer 0. Once everything is sliced, you'll go back into Hue Forge and click this button here, Describe. This will tell you when to swap out filaments. Now, with the AMS, you can set this up directly in the slicer software, but if you have another 3D printer, you can do this manually if your printer allows for pausing. So you would pause your print and then swap out the filament. I know there are other videos, probably more helpful, that explain that process in more detail. Once you have these instructions, go back into the slicer software. Using the slider on the right, scroll up to the first specified layer, select Change Filament, and select the specified color. You'll repeat this for the other 2 layers. Once you're done, you can go ahead and start printing. So as I was printing this, I was pretty excited to see the result. I felt like I had chose the right colors as it matched the character Princess Zelda. Unfortunately, it looked washed out and there wasn't a lot of contrast as seen in the Dragoon card. So then I swapped out the gold color for green, and that improved the contrast dramatically, but it was still kind of desaturated. The process really wasn't clicking for me for some reason, so I just took in a regular image and realized that working with values was probably the way to go. All this time I had been thinking about colors when I should have been thinking about the light and dark areas of the image. So I ended up grayscaling the entire design and adjusting the values in Photoshop, and that led me to more accurate results and vibrant colors. So for my 3rd attempt, I'm currently trying the same color palette I used for the Dragoon, which is blue, pink, and white. It's printing right now and it's looking pretty good so far, so we'll see. I guess the big takeaway was realizing that this process resembles working with a 4-color printer. And so here is the result fresh off the printer. I haven't peeled it off just yet. And here are the 2 other fails. I guess they're not necessarily fails. I just didn't really like how they turned out. I mean, the colors look really great, but I think that because the contrast is really prominent in the blue, I like that one the best. But overall, I think that it really captured the detail of the design. And that was one of the things I also wanted to focus on, was just how detailed I can go with it. And I think that it did amazingly. With understanding how this works, I can probably create other things that are better designed for this process. My problem was that I was trying to fit the design into the process when it doesn't honestly work the way that I imagined it. I guess it wasn't that complicated. So I think that's a really great takeaway for the next time I try this. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you've tried filament painting, feel free to share your experiment and projects that you've created. Also, I'm still new to 3D printing and this whole world, so if you have any tips or tricks that you'd like to share or have any questions for me, feel free to leave them below. Thanks again, and see you all in the next video.